Hey everyone, this is Kavita. Welcome back to my channel KSD Learning Time. Today we are going to learn an interesting lesson that is from the diary of Anne Frank. It is an autobiography that was first published in 1947. In this, Anne expresses her thoughts in a diary which was gifted to her on her 13th birthday. She names the diary Kitty, as you can see in the picture, which she considers as her only true friend. And the story is based upon the theme of loneliness and the inability of being comfortable with others. So let's enjoy the story. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me, not only because I have never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Musings means you can say a period of reflection or thought. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing and I have a greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. Here, author feels that it is strange and unusual for her to write in a diary because she thinks that in the future no one would be interested in reading about a young school going girl's past. Her diary. She thinks that later even she will not be interested in reading it. But then she puts these thoughts away and decides that she would write if she feels like doing so. She feels the need to write because there were a lot of thoughts she had been holding on to lately and she needed to get them off her mind. And it is known that writing one's thoughts act as therapy. She makes the decision of writing a diary and she started writing diary. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless. Listless means you can say with no energy or interest, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience, and since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this step back notebook, grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Prompted means provoked. Here, brooding means sad and angry feeling. Now, let's understand the paragraph. The author feels that paper has much more capacity. Author means our Anne feels that paper has more capacity to absorb thoughts than people. People have low patience, but a piece of paper, being a non-living thing, would not refuse from absorbing her thoughts. This realization came to her one day when she was feeling more sad and confused than usual. She could not even decide whether to go out or stay at home at that time, and she was too bored to stay at home even. When she finally decided to stay at home, she sat being depressed and in deep thought. Again, she thought that paper had more patience and she decided to write everything that came in her mind because she did not intend or force to anyone to read her diary unless she found a real friend. By real friend, she meant a friend with whom she could share all her secrets. The author means Anne then comes back to the point where she thought of beginning to write, and it is because she is lonely and has no friend to talk to. Next, she writes, let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world, and I'm not. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I'm with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide. Confide means to tell personal things to a person that you trust in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable, means likely to change. This is why I have started the diary. Now, here she tells exactly why she feels that she need a friend. She feels that no one is going to believe that a young girl like her is so alone, which practically she is not because she has a loving family near about 30 people that can be called friends, loving aunts, and a good place to stay. This depicts a clear picture of a happy family, but the one thing that lacks in her life is the presence of a true friend with whom she can share everything. She does have a good time with friends. They talk about stuff, but not real stuff that is actually going on in their lives. Despite trying hard, they are unable to get closer. She feels that maybe it is her who is not able to trust anyone with her private stuff, that she is not able to come any close to her friends. She feels that the current situation cannot be changed and thus she needs to write her feelings in the diary as true friend. Next, she says to enhance means to improve the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination. I don't want to jot down means write down the facts in this diary the way most people would do, but I want the diary to be my friend and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge means jump right in, I would better provide a brief sketch of my life much as I dislike doing so. Usually when someone is writing in a diary, they write in a formal manner which the author does not want to do. This is because she wanted to give her friend a shape and thus decides to name the diary as Kitty. Hoping that someone would read her diary one day, she thinks that writing without giving details about the background story would be ineffective. So, despite not wanting to do so, she gives brief details about her life. Here she said, my father, the most adorable father. Adorable means lovable, cute, I have ever seen. Didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. My sister, Margot, was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12 June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. My father immigrated. Immigrated means he has lived own country in order to settle permanently in another country, to Holland in 1933. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margot and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margot went to Holland in December and I followed in February when I was plunked. Plunked means put down on the tables as a birthday present for Margot. Here, she tells about her father that he is the most lovable father one could get. Her father married her mother when he was at the age of 36 and she was 25. She and her sister Margot were both born in Frankfurt. As soon as Anne turned 4, her father moved to Holland, followed by her mother in September, while both the sisters stayed with their grandmother in Aachen. Margot was also sent to Holland in December, followed by Anne in February, who was brought as a birthday present for Margot. She says, I started right away at the Montessori nursery school. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started in the first form. In the sixth form, my teacher was Mrs. Cooper's, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in the tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell. Farewell means an act of parting or of making someone's departure. In the summer of 1941, Grandma fell ill and had to have an operation, so my birthday passed with little celebration. Here, Anne wanted to tell us that in Holland, Anne was sent to Montessori nursery school. It was her first school. She started from first grade, you can say. Here she had Mrs. Cooper's, the headmistress, as her teacher in 6th, who even cried at the time of farewell. In 1941, the author's birthday means Anne's birthday could not be celebrated well because her grandmother fell ill and underwent an operation. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended means planned to make up for the other, and Grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. The 4 of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. Solemn means sincere, deep dedication, commitment of the diary. Here she tells, unfortunately, her grandmother left them in January 1942 and misses her grandmother more than anyone knows. This year's birthday was to be celebrated with great zeal, enthusiasm, so as to compensate for last year's. She then mentions that her family is doing well, which sums up her background and brings her to the present date of June 20th, 1942, when she is writing her diary. Our entire class is quacking. Quacking means shaking or trembling loudly in its boots. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will move up to the next form and who will be kept back. Half the class is making bets. Jian and I laugh ourselves silly at the 2 boys behind us, Cian and Jax, who have staked means they also bet their entire holiday savings on their bet from morning to night. It's you are going to pass. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Even G Pleading glances, pleading, you can say, to make an emotional appeal, take a brief or hurried look. And my angry outburst means, you can say, a sudden release of strong emotions like anger. Can't calm them down. If you ask me, there are so many dummies means, you can say, substitute, that about a quarter of the class should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable, not able to be predicted creatures on earth. As we come to know in last paragraph, that Anne has started writing her diary on June 20th, 1942. She has addressed her diary as her friend Kitty. She mentions how her entire class is nervous about their results. It is unpredictable and will be decided by a meeting of teachers in which they will select students to be moved to next class or kept back. Many students were making bets. Some had put in their entire summer savings at a stake, means at bet. She and her friend G also made fun of the nervous boys, those who were thinking that they will not go to the next form. They kept on saying to each other that I'm not going to pass, while others would console them and say, yes, you would. G was polite as she tried to stop them from making noise while Anne scolded them. But none of it worked. According to Anne, about a quarter of class should not be allowed to pass because they hardly respond or take part in any of the activities. She refers to them as dummies, as a substitute, but this may not be the case because teachers' decisions can't be predicted. It can't be tell. Anne says, I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We will make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is maths. Anyway, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. Not to lose heart means not be discouraged. Here, Anne says that she is not bothered about her friends because she is sure that they will pass. The only thing subject that she is unsure about is mathematics. She seems to be having a tough time with the subject, but all they could do was wait for the results and not lose their hope. Next, she said, I get along pretty well with my old teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Mr. Kissing, the old fogey. Old fogey means, you can say, an old-fashioned person who teaches maths, was annoyed, slightly angry, irritating with me for ages because I talk so much. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework, an essay on the subject, a chatterbox. Chatterbox means a person who likes to chatter or talkative. A chatterbox. What can you write about that? I would worry about that later. I decided I jotted down, means I write down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. She tells here how she has a great relationship with all her teachers, except the maths professor, who was Mr. Kissing, the old foggy, old-fashioned person. He was constantly irritated by the Anne's talkativeness, despite several warnings, and did not stop talking in his classes, which prompted him to give her extra homework as punishment. The first one was to write an essay on chatterbox, which she thought was a weird topic to write on because what could one write about that? About chatterbox? For the moment, she wrote the topic in her notebook, kept it in her bag, and focused on staying quiet. That evening, after I had finished the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble. Ramble means to talk or write at length in focused or inconsequential ways and leave big spaces between the words. But the trick was to come up with convincing. Convincing is the telling someone to believe arguments to prove the necessity of talking. Here, what Anne wanted to tell us, she made a note to remind her for the essay after she had finished the rest of her homework. She began thinking about the topic while chewing the tip of her fountain pen. Is a gesture that signifies a person is in deep thinking. While anyone could mention random stuff written for the sake of filling pages, she wanted to present concrete arguments, perfect arguments in support of talking. Next, I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote the 3 pages Mr. Kissing had assigned me and was satisfied. I argued that talking is a student's trait, quality, and that I would do my best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there is not much you can do about inherited traits. Inherited traits means, you can say, which you have got genetically from your parents. She wanted to present her concrete argument in support of talking. She mentioned that she will try to better herself as a student, but talking is something that cannot be eliminated, cannot be denied completely. This is because she got it as an inherited trait from her mother, and this is how she ended up writing 3 pages on the topic. Mr. Kissing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. This time, it was supposed to be on an incorrigible, means not able to be changed, chatterbox. I handed it in, and Mr. Kissing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons. However, during the third lesson, he had finally had enough, and Frank, as punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled Quack Quack Quack, said Mistress Chatterbox. Here, after punishment, she did not stop talking in the next lesson also. So that the professor gave her yet another assignment as punishment. The topic was an incorrigible chatterbox. Incorrigible refers to a bad habits that is difficult to change. He gave her this topic because he was annoyed of her unstoppable chattering during his lessons. On receiving this assignment, the professor did not say anything to her for a while, but when he lost his patience, he handed her yet another assignment as punishment on the topic Quack Quack Quack, said Mistress Chatterbox. Next, she said, the class roared. Roared means laughed. I had to laugh too. Though I had nearly exhausted, means completely used up, tired my ingenuity. Ingenuity means the quality of being clever, original, and inventive. On the topic of chatterbox, it was time to come up with something else, something original. My friend Sani, who's good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse. Verse means you can say writing arranged with the metrical rhythm or rhymes, and I jumped for joy. Mr. Kissing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject. Ridiculous means absurd, but I had make sure the joke was on me. Here, she wanted to tell us when the professor scolded her for the third time and punished her, the whole class started laughing. As a result, she had to pretend to be amused too. Means she also wanted to laugh on that. After writing twice on similar topics, she ran out of thoughts. Thus, her friend Sani, who was good at poetry, offered to help her write in rhyme. This whole assignment scenario was to make Anne feel ashamed, but she made sure that she gave an effective reply. Finally, she said, I finished my poem and it was beautiful. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with 3 baby ducklings who were beaten to death by the father because they quacked too much. Luckily, Mr. Kissing took the joke the right way. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments, and to several other classes as well. Since then, I have been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned my extra homework. On the contrary, means on the opposite way, Mr. Kissing's always making jokes these days. Yours Anne, extracted from the Diary of a Young Girl with a slight adaptation. So here, she is explaining us she finally wrote her third assignment in the form of a poem which turned out to be great. She wrote a satire that a father swan beat his 3 baby ducklings to death because of their noisy nature. To her good luck, the professor took it lightly. The professor recited the entire poem in front of the class while giving his own remarks simultaneously. The other, being fortunate enough, talked uninterruptedly after this incident without any further homework as punishment. Also, Mr. Kissing, the professor, started cracking jokes every now and then in front of the class. So, here we have understood the story was based upon the theme of loneliness and the inability of being comfortable with others. The writer misses having a true friend and gets a diary as her confidant. The lesson also shows the narrator's intelligence and talkative nature and how tactfully she handles her annoyed teacher. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe our channel.